Welcome to the Deep Dive. Where we like to go deep on the research and articles that everyone's talking about, but maybe no one has time to really dig into. Today, we're going to do a deep dive on leadership. And, that's something everyone thinks they understand, but there's always more to learn.
Always.
We've got a whole bunch of articles. We've got some advice from seasoned professionals, even some tips on how to lead when things get really rough. Yeah,
Leadership during crises.
Exactly.
It's going to be a good one.
Buckle up, get ready, because we're going to unlock those secrets of effective leadership.
It's fascinating stuff, too, because we're not just looking for, one definition of leadership. We're really going to explore a bunch of ideas.
Right.
Everything from practical guides to insights from, people who've been doing this for years.
Totally. And I love that we can bring those different voices together.
Yeah.
Right? And kind of see what are the common threads? What are the things that everyone agrees on?
Yeah. Are there common threads?
Right. And I think there are some. So let's jump right in. I'm really curious about this one. 4 secrets of effective leadership and how to learn them. This article lays out 4 abilities. It kind of sounds like a superhero origin story. The ability to judge, the ability to face up, the ability to merge, and the ability to cooperate.
It does sound kind of like a comic book or something. Yeah. But here's what I think is really encouraging about this article. It doesn't say that these are innate things that you're born with or you're not. It actually says that they can be learned and developed.
Ooh.
Which I think is really good news.
That's good news for all of us aspiring leaders out there.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like a training montage for future leaders. Okay, let's break these down a little bit. Ability to judge. That sounds kind of intimidating. Does that mean leaders are supposed to be judgmental?
Well, no, not exactly. What it really comes down to is being able to make decisions. Decisive choices.
Okay.
Sometimes you don't have all the information. But if you wait for the perfect moment to make a decision, you might miss a chance.
Yeah, you missed the opportunity.
So it's more about, imagine a ship captain.
Right.
In a storm. They can't just wait for perfect weather.
Right.
They've got to make a call based on the information they have and be ready to adjust, as they go.
Okay, so it's about being comfortable with calculated risks, understanding that sometimes. Making a decision, even if you have to adjust it later, is better than being stuck.
Absolutely.
And not doing anything.
Indecision is often worse than making a change later.
Totally. And this ties into the next one, right?
Yeah.
Facing up. What does that mean?
Well, I think it's really about acknowledging challenges directly, not avoiding them.
Right.
It takes courage to say, hey, this is the situation. This is what we need to do.
Right.
And not get bogged down in blame or negativity.
It's about taking ownership and sort of creating a culture of accountability.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and that really sets the groundwork, I think, for the other 2. Merging and cooperating.
Absolutely, because you need both of those things as a leader, right?
Yeah, it can't just be all.
You've got to know when to push for your ideas, but also when to be flexible and incorporate other people's perspectives. And that balance is so important for teamwork.
Yeah.
You think about a conductor of an orchestra.
Okay.
They have their own interpretation of the music,
right,
but they also have to listen to all these individual musicians and harmonize with them to create that beautiful sound.
It's like a dance.
It is.
Between, assertiveness and flexibility.
Yeah.
And this reminds me of a quote from another article we looked at. Building a strong team, the secrets of a successful leader. And it says, leaders don't create followers, they create leaders.
Oh, what a great quote.
I love that so much. What do you think that means?
I think it means creating an environment where each person on your team feels valued, feels capable, and can ultimately step up and be a leader themselves.
Yeah.
Think about a coach training a team. They're not just telling the players what to do, they're teaching them the skills and strategies to be leaders on the field.
I love that. So it's about inspiring that growth at every level.
Exactly.
And the article also talks about self-awareness as being super important for this kind of leadership.
Oh, it's crucial. Because you can't lead others effectively if you don't understand yourself first.
Okay.
The article talks about looking in the mirror and being honest with yourself about your strengths, your weaknesses, your values.
Yeah.
What kind of leader are you?
Right.
And that allows you to play to your strengths. And also to recognize where you might need some support.
Right. It's like knowing what you're good at and knowing what you need help with.
Exactly. And, it's like a pilot flying a plane. They have to understand the capabilities of that aircraft
Mm-hmm.
to be able to fly it safely.
Right, so it's like having the owner's manual
Yes.
for your leadership style.
For yourself.
I like that. Okay, now the article also talks about confronting difficult issues head on.
Mhm.
And it can be tempting to avoid conflict.
Right? It's so much easier to just avoid it.
Way easier.
But the article makes a really good point that facing challenges directly can actually make the team stronger.
Okay.
Think about it like this. You create a culture where mistakes aren't seen as failures,
Yeah,
but as opportunities to learn and grow,
right.
like a scientist conducting an experiment. If the first try doesn't work,
Yeah,
they don't just give up.
right.
They go back. They analyze the results, and they adjust their approach.
So it's all about learning from those mistakes
Absolutely.
and using them to improve.
Yep.
And speaking of learning and improving, we got to talk about appreciation. I mean, remember that stat from the article? 66% of employees are more likely to leave a job if they don't feel appreciated.
Yeah, that's huge. It's a big reminder for leaders to make
Yeah.
sure
Yes.
that their team members feel valued, because that appreciation, it can really impact their morale, their motivation, and ultimately whether they stay with the company.
Totally. Now I want to bring in some wisdom from a seasoned professional, Kenny Chapman.
Oh,
He has an article, Kenny Chapman, 10 Secrets of Successful Leadership. And this is from Plumbing and Mechanical,
Yeah.
which is really interesting because, he's coming from a very specific industry.
Yeah, blue collar background.
Yeah, but his advice really resonates with a lot of what we've been talking about.
It's true. His advice is very much in line with, what we see in these other articles.
Yeah.
He talks about respect, clear communication, and viewing failures as opportunities to learn.
Mm-hmm. And, I think what's cool about that is it's like these core principles are universal,
Yeah.
regardless of what industry you're in
It seems like it.
or what your background is. It's about respect. It's about open communication. It's about trust.
Yeah, trust is key.
Those are the foundational pillars
Yeah.
of good leadership.
They really are.
And, Kenny Chapman adds something else that I think is really important. Having fun.
Oh, yeah.
He talked about how it's essential to create a work environment that's positive and enjoyable while still maintaining professionalism, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But I think it's a good reminder that, work can be fun
it should be.
and that can actually lead to better results.
Yeah, a positive work environment can really boost creativity.
Totally.
Productivity.
Okay, so we've talked about, the ideal scenario. But what about when things get tough?
Right.
What about when there are challenges? This article, Secrets of Effective Leadership in Times of Crisis. This one really hit home for me,
Oh, yeah.
especially, in today's world where things are so unpredictable.
For sure.
And it talks about what it calls danger signals, which are like those physical and emotional responses we have to stress.
Oh, like our internal alarm system.
Exactly.
That's all.
Yeah, and the article suggests that we actually use those danger signals as information.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just like, oh, no, I'm stressed out. It's like, oh, my body is telling me something.
Exactly. It's a signal
Yeah.
that we need to pay attention to.
It's like a smoke detector.
Okay.
It's not just an annoying sound. It's telling you to do something.
Right. Take action.
Right.
So instead of letting that stress take over, we can use it
Yeah.
as a cue to say, okay, what's going on? What information do I need? And how do I need to respond?
That's a really good way to look at it.
And then the article also talks about acting expansively under pressure.
Which at first seems kind of counterintuitive.
It does.
You would think. When there's a crisis,
Yeah.
you'd want to narrow your focus.
Right. Just focus on what's right in front of you.
But this is saying act expansively.
Yeah. And I think what that means is involving other people, getting different perspectives, and being open to new and creative solutions.
Okay, so it's like, yeah, instead of getting tunnel vision,
Right?
you're opening up.
You're widening your view.
You're getting input from other people.
Absolutely.
Think about like firefighters.
Responding to a fire. They don't just like run in alone. They work as a team. They use their collective knowledge
Yeah,
and skills to contain the situation.
that's a great analogy.
And it really highlights, I think, the importance of collaboration and communication,
Yeah, communication is so key,
especially when things are tough.
especially then.
And I want to bring in another resource that I think gives a more structured approach to leadership. This book, Secrets of Effective Leadership, A Practical Guide to Success. It offers something called a leadership self-appraisal. And then it also has what it calls the top 10 commandments of leadership.
Okay,
So
interesting.
I'm curious, what do you think about those kind of tools?
I think those are really valuable because they give you a framework for self-reflection,
Yeah.
and they also offer some really concrete guidelines for being a good leader.
Right, and for doing it
Yeah.
in an ethical way.
Yeah.
It's like having a checklist to make sure you're staying on track
Yeah.
and upholding those
Yeah.
high standards.
You know, it's like anything else. If you want to be good at something, you need to practice. And you need to have some guidelines to help you along the way.
But I'm kind of curious,
Mm-hmm.
are there really secrets to leadership?
That's a good question.
Or is it more about a set of principles and practices
Mhm.
that anyone can learn and apply?
I think that's what we're here to find out.
Okay.
And speaking of secrets,
Ooh, well,
our next article actually challenges the very idea of leadership secrets.
how perfect. Let's dive into that in part 2.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So we were talking about leadership secrets and whether they really exist.
Right. This article, Stop Looking for Best Kept Secrets and Follow the 4Ks of Effective Leadership. It really got me thinking. Like, maybe we're looking for a magic formula, when really it's more about developing certain skills and knowledge.
Exactly. The article's whole point is that leadership is a craft, not some hidden art.
Right.
And it gives us a framework, the 4Ks of leadership.
The 4K.
Know your people. Know yourself as a leader. Know your emotional intelligence. And know what you don't know.
Okay, that sounds simple enough, but I have a feeling there's a lot to unpack there. So let's start with know your people. What does that really mean?
Yeah.
Because it's got to be more than just remembering names and birthdays, right?
Yeah, it goes way deeper than that. It's about really understanding the individuals on your team,
Okay.
their strengths, their weaknesses, what motivates them, what they're hoping to achieve.
So it's like,
Think of a gardener
okay,
who's taking care of all these different plants. Each plant has its own needs, right?
right. Some need more sun, some need more shade,
Exactly.
some need more water.
Some need to be pruned more. A good gardener knows how to take care of each one.
So you're saying a good leader is like a good gardener.
Kinda.
They understand what each person needs to thrive.
To grow, to reach their full potential.
Okay, I like that analogy. Now, the second K is know yourself as a leader. Why is self-awareness so important for leadership?
Well, you can't really lead others effectively if you don't understand yourself first.
Right.
You need to know your strengths and weaknesses, your values.
Yeah.
What kind of leader are you?
Like, what's your style?
Yeah, and once you know that, you can really play to your strengths and get help in the areas where you need it.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Think about a pilot.
Go ahead.
They have to understand the plane to fly it safely.
Right, so you're saying self-awareness is like having that owner's manual for your own leadership.
It's yourself, yeah.
Okay, I like that. Now, the third K, know your emotional intelligence. That seems super important, especially these days.
Oh, it's crucial. Emotional intelligence is basically being able to understand and manage your own emotions
Okay.
and the emotions of other people.
That's tough.
It is, but it's so important for building relationships, communicating effectively, resolving conflict, and leading with empathy.
It's like you're saying, it's not just about being smart, it's about being human.
Yeah, it's about understanding that. Emotions play a huge role in how we work together.
Right. Think about like an orchestra conductor.
Okay.
They have to be really attuned to the emotions of the musicians
Yeah.
to create that perfect performance.
So they're kind of like the emotional conductor.
Exactly.
Okay, now the final K. Know what you don't know. This one's interesting.
It is. And it's really about being humble. But you're not going to have all the answers.
Right. No one does.
Exactly. And a good leader knows that. They're willing to seek out expertise, ask for help, and let other people shine.
So it's about knowing when to step back.
Yeah, and trusting other people.
I like that.
It's like a doctor who consults with specialists.
Okay.
They don't pretend to know everything. They get the best help they can.
Let's give their patients the best care.
Exactly.
So these 4Ks, they're like a guide for effective leadership.
They are.
Understanding our team, understanding ourselves, using emotional intelligence, and being humble enough to admit that we don't have all the answers.
That's a great way to put it.
But how do we actually use these in real life? Well, let's imagine a few scenarios.
Okay.
Let's say you're leading a team through a big change.
Okay, like a merger.
Yeah, or a company reorganization.
Right.
How would you use the 4Ks to navigate that?
Well, I think know your people would be super important. You need to understand their concerns, their fears, and communicate really clearly
Absolutely.
and with empathy.
Because change can be scary for people.
Right. And you also need to know yourself. How do you react to change?
That's a good point.
Are you able to stay calm and model that for your team?
Because they're looking to you for guidance.
Exactly.
And don't forget about emotional intelligence.
Right. You need to be sensitive to how people are feeling.
And create a safe space
And know it.
for them to express their concern.
And then know what you don't know. You might need to get help from experts,
Yeah, or just be open to feedback from your team,
right? Because they might have insights that you don't have.
for sure.
Okay, so we've got change management. What about a different scenario?
Yeah.
What if your team is in a slump?
Okay, yeah, that's a common one.
How would you apply the 4Ks there?
Well, first you need to figure out why they're struggling. Know your people, right?
Okay.
Is it a lack of motivation?
Yeah, or maybe they don't have the right resources.
Exactly. Or maybe the goals aren't clear.
Right, so you need to dig deep and really listen to your team.
Ask questions. Get their perspective.
And then you need to know yourself. Are you setting clear expectations?
Yeah.
Are you giving them the support they need?
Are you creating a positive environment?
And then emotional intelligence comes into play again.
Yeah.
Because they might be feeling discouraged.
Yeah, frustrated.
And you need to be able to recognize that.
And help them get back on track.
And know what you don't know. Maybe you need to bring in a coach,
Yeah, or consultants.
someone with fresh eyes.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's talk about a challenge that's becoming more and more common. Leading remote teams.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
How do the 4Ks apply there?
Well, know your people becomes even more important because you're not seeing them every day. You need to find ways to connect with them, understand their individual needs.
Right, because everyone's work style is different,
Exactly.
especially when you're remote.
And you need to create a sense of community,
Yeah.
even when you're not physically together.
Right, it's about being intentional, about building those relationships,
Absolutely.
and then know yourself.
Right.
You know, you need to adjust your communication style.
Yeah,
Are you comfortable with technology?
because you have to be.
Right, and then emotional intelligence. That's huge with remote teams.
It is because you can't just read the room.
Right, you don't have those nonverbal cues.
So you have to be more proactive about checking in with people.
And then know what you don't know. Maybe you need to learn about new tools
Yeah.
for remote team management.
Or just get feedback from your team on what's working and what's not.
Right, because they're the ones living it every day.
Exactly.
So the 4Ks, they're a framework that you can use in all kinds of situations.
They really are a versatile set of tools.
But even with the best tools, there are always potential pitfalls.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I think we need to talk about those.
I agree.
What are some of the traps that leaders should watch out for? Welcome back to the deep dive.
We've been talking about all kinds of things that make leaders effective, you know, the 4Ks and all that. But I think it's important to also talk about, you know, what can trip people up? What are some of the common pitfalls that even good leaders can fall into?
Yeah, you can have the best intentions in the world, but still make some classic mistakes along the way.
Exactly. So what are some of those traps that we should watch out for?
One of the big ones is not delegating enough. It's really easy to fall into that trap of thinking, if I want it done right, I got to do it myself.
I get that, especially when you're passionate about the work you know. You want to make sure it's done to a high standard.
Exactly. And it's easy to get caught up in that feeling of control. But remember, leadership isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about empowering others to do their best work.
Right. It's about guiding and supporting, not taking over. Exactly. If you're always micromanaging or doing tasks that someone else could handle, you're not only burning yourself out, but you're also preventing your team from growing and developing their skills. It's like a gardener who tries to control every little detail of the garden. They might end up stunting the plant's growth by not giving them the space to thrive.
So it's about having that trust in your team, giving them the room to learn and make their own contributions.
Exactly. And speaking of trust, another big pitfall is failing to communicate effectively.
Yeah, we've touched on that a bit throughout this deep dive, but I think it's worth emphasizing because communication really is the foundation of everything in leadership.
It's the glue that holds everything together. Without clear, consistent, and transparent communication, you can't build trust, you can't get everyone aligned, and it's really hard for teams to perform at their best.
Right, it's like a game of telephone where the message gets distorted as it goes from person to person.
Exactly. And remember, good communication isn't just about talking, it's about listening to. It's about actively seeking feedback and making sure everyone feels comfortable sharing their ideas and concerns.
It's a two-way street, a conversation, not just a lecture.
Exactly. And that ties into another pitfall that can be easy to overlook: neglecting self-development.
Ah, the classic, you can't pour from an empty cup scenario.
Exactly. It's so easy to get caught up in the demands of leading others that you forget to invest in your own growth. But remember, effective leadership is a journey of continuous learning.
You got to keep that learning mindset going.
It's about staying curious, seeking out new knowledge and skills, being open to feedback, and constantly looking for ways to improve.
Kind of like an athlete who's training for a competition.
Yeah, exactly. They don't just rely on their natural talent, they push themselves, practice constantly, and work with coaches to refine their skills.
So leadership is less about reaching a destination and more about the ongoing journey of improvement.
Exactly. And that leads us to what might be the biggest pitfall of all in today's world: failing to adapt to change.
Because things are changing so fast these days.
They really are. And if you cling to old ways of doing things or resist new ideas, you'll quickly find yourself falling behind.
It's like trying to sail a ship with a torn sail. You're not going to get very far.
Exactly. Leaders need to be agile, flexible, and open to embracing new ways of thinking and working. And they need to create that same culture of adaptability within their teams.
So encouraging experimentation, being okay with making mistakes and learning from them.
Absolutely. It's all about continuous improvement and innovation.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into effective leadership, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think it's this: leadership isn't about power, it's about empowering others. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels valued, respected, and capable of making a difference.
It's about recognizing the potential in others and giving them the support they need to thrive.
Exactly. And it's about leading with empathy, authenticity, and a commitment to continuous growth.
Both for yourself and for those you lead. Well said.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of effective leadership. We hope you've picked up some valuable insights and maybe even some new tools for your own leadership journey. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading with purpose.